Okay, we're going to talk about solids and shapes and masks. And along the way, we're going to explore a few simple effects that you can use in After Effects. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a project here. I'm assuming by now that you have the project open and ready to go. And so what we're going to do is create a new comp. And the way you do that is simply to click on this little icon right here. You can also go to Composition, New Composition, but the little link here, the little icon, is quicker. And I want you to make sure that it's set to HDTV 1080 2997. And I want you to set the length of the comp to 5 seconds and 00 frames. So just type in 500, just like so. Background color should be black, okay? Although the background is really not really there. Even though we have a black background, we're just going to see that if we click on this little checkerboard here, that's how we see what is transparent. We'll see that right now everything is transparent, okay? So this should indicate to you that this black that's here, it's not really there. It's just something to give us a little backdrop to work with. That's really what's back there, nothing. Okay, so we are going to put something back there now. We're going to create a new solid. Layer, new, solid. And we're going to make this solid white. Actually, I want you to make it 90% white. 90. And we'll just say OK. And we are going to name this Star Field. Now go ahead and click on the button that says Make Comp Size, and that should make it this 1920 by 1080 size, and we'll click OK. And what we're going to do to this is add an effect. The effect is called CC Star Burst. Now over here in the Effects and Presets tab, if you just type in star, you're going to start to see what we have in here named Star. Now here's the one we're looking for, CC Star Burst. And there we've got a star field. Now we're going to make some changes to this, and the place that we make the changes is over here. Normally this is our project tab or project window, but when you add an effect, it automatically pops up with the effect controls for whatever the effect is that we're wanting to manipulate. We're going to change a couple of settings here. Scatter, we're going to change to 450. Speed, 0, because we don't want it animating at all. We just want it to sit there. And grid spacing, 1. And there we have our simple star field. Now if we ever wanted to change the color of this solid layer, we would just go to Layer, Solid Settings, and there's our color chip. We can change it to red or whatever, and it's going to change it. I'm going to click Cancel because I want to keep white. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to create a new solid. Again, Layer, New, Solid. This time we're going to name it Earth. And we'll make it a little bit different color here. Let's go ahead and make it a kind of a bluish color. It really doesn't matter because we're going to add an effect which adds its own color anyway, but that's good enough for us. And we'll click OK. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an effect called Fractal Noise. F-R-A-C-T-A-L will give us 2, fractal and fractal noise. We don't want the one called fractal. We want the one called fractal noise. And when we do this, we see that the color goes away and gets replaced by this smoky looking stuff over here. So we'll make just a couple of changes over here. We're going to change the contrast to 200, and we're going to make the brightness darker at -40. Okay, so yours should look something like this. Now we're going to add another effect called Tint, T-I-N-T, Tint. And we'll drag it right on top of the layer. Now you could drag it up here as long as the layer was chosen, but we're going to be safe and just put it right on top of the layer. And nothing happens. Looky here. Here's our tint effect. And what we want to do is change something about these tint settings. So the thing that we're going to change here is to keep the white white, and we're going to make the black that blue color that we chose. So we click on the little color chip right there and just go find a nice earth looking blue. Some looks of earth look more like that. Maybe we'll choose a little darker one like that. Looks pretty good. Something like that. Now we're going to add one more effect, and it's to make this into a ball. CC sphere. CC sphere. We'll bring that on, and now we get our earth, looking a little bit like an earth anyway. All right, let's go ahead and create yet another new solid layer, new solid, and we're going to call this one sun. Sun, and we'll make it a kind of an orangey color. Something like that, maybe a little more reddish. Doesn't really matter because we're going to add some color to it anyway. The reason we're making these a color is more kind of for us right now. These little color chips that occur over here, those might just give you some indication if you've got 20 layers going, oh, the color so-and-so, that's the layer I want. So anyway, that's why we're putting those on there. All right, we're going to add yet another effect. Now I'm going to go ahead and clear out the register here by just clicking the X. Okay. Now we have some animation presets in here. If I were to twirl down on this, we would get all of these different preset animations we have. And if we twirl down again to backgrounds, we can see that there are another set inside of backgrounds, and there's a whole bunch of them. So which one do we choose? Well, luckily for us, we have a little helper called Adobe Bridge. If we click on this little flyout over here on the right, we can go to Browse Presets. By clicking on Browse Presets, what that's going to do is open Adobe Bridge for us. And here's Adobe Bridge. And all of our preset effects are in here and ready for us to look at. We want to go look at backgrounds. So if we click on backgrounds, here are all of the presets. And if we click on any one of these, then we can see what that preset looks like over here in the preview window. For some reason it's not popping up. There it goes. Okay, that's what that one looks like. It's a low-res preview, but there it is. We want the one called Magma. Okay, so there's Magma. That's great. So in order to apply this to After Effects on this layer, we just double-click. Double-click. And there we go. There we have our Magma, and there is the Magma effect. Kind of cool, isn't it? So we're going to go ahead and add a couple more things here. Again, we're going to add CC Sphere. There is CC Sphere, and we're going to add that to our sun layer, and there we get our sun. And so I'll just go ahead and maybe move the sun over here a little bit, and so we can see both the sun and the earth, and they're both the same size right now. And the sun doesn't look much like a sun because it appears that something is casting a light on the sun. Well, we know that the sun creates its own light. It doesn't get light cast on it. So we're going to need to make some changes to CC Sphere. And what we're going to do to this is look under shading here, and we're going to change these settings. We're going to set the ambient light to 100, the light intensity to 0. That's going to be under light intensity. We're going to set that to 0. And now we get an evenly lit sun. Now it's your choice whether or not you want to make the sun big or the sun small. My choice is going to be to make the sun smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the sun layer and type the keyboard shortcut S for scale, and I'm going to scale it down. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. It puts the sun in the background and the earth in the foreground. And maybe we'll just move it up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe we'll move the earth down a little. Something like that. So that's just a quick look at some of the ways that you can use solids. Every one of these things that we've created here is a solid. And we've added effects to each one of these solids. All right, let's try something new now. Let's start a new composition. Again, we can go to either composition, new composition, or we can use the keyboard shortcut Control N, or we can click on the little icon. We've got to go back to the project tab in order to do that. So click on the new comp icon here, and we're going to name this comp Shape Layers. Shape Layers. All right, here's where we're going with this. We're going to go up and choose the Shapes tool. There's the Shapes tool right there. Now I'm going to click and hold on the Shapes tool, and the one I want to choose is the Star tool. So I'm going to come roughly in the middle of this comp and draw out a shape. But before I do, I'd like to kind of see where the absolute center is. So I can click right down here on this little target looking icon and turn on Title and Action Safe. And that gives me little crosshairs right in the middle, along with showing our title and action safe markers around the sides there, around the edges. And so I'm going to start drawing out from the center here. Okay, and that gives me a star shape. That's great. Right now I have this black shape. It's really nothing. The colors for this shape are up here in the top. We have a fill color and a stroke color. Right now the stroke is set to white. Stroke is an outline. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set the stroke to 0, and I'm going to change the fill color to white, or that 90% white that we used before. There we go. So there's our white color. Now it's not exactly the shape that I want this to be, so I'm going to go down into the contents, which are showing for us down here in the timeline, and I'm going to twirl down Polystar 1 and go to Polystar Path 1, and there we see some settings here, the number of points, and you can change the number of points here, and we can change the inner radius and the outer radius. So if we want to, we can make a really kind of a skinny looking thing, or we can make it more like a sort of like an emblem, and we can change the outer radius to make it bigger or smaller. All kinds of possibilities in here for us. You also have inner roundness and outer roundness. So inner roundness allows us to kind of change, sort of makes it look like a little bit like a flower. We're going to look at another way to do that here in a second. And outer roundness as well. We see that's another way to kind of make a little flower shape. Now I want to just show you real quick. I think I'm going to change the inner radius to a little bit bigger right now. Something like that. Doesn't matter really. Up at the top of the screen we have something called Add. So I'm going to click on Add, and we have a whole complete set of effects that we can add. One of them is called Pucker and Bloat. That's the one we want, Pucker and Bloat. And now when we add Pucker and Bloat, it's going to be visible down here in the timeline. Let me scroll down a little bit so we can see all of the stuff for Pucker and Bloat. We're going to twirl it down. I'll tell you what, let me just go ahead and twirl this up so we can see Pucker and Bloat better. Twirl that down, and we can see there's just one setting, amount. Okay, so we can change this setting either to a positive or negative number, and we're going to get something there. I was looking for some kind of a sprite effect. I wanted sort of a glimmer or a glint kind of a thing here. In fact, I do want to rename this layer, so I'm gonna rename it now by clicking on the Enter key. Just enter. That's it. And we're going to call it Sprite. There. Now maybe I want to go back and again under Polystar Path, maybe I want to change that inner radius again to something a little bit smaller. You know, we can make it really very, very small. And then, you know, we can play with the Pucker and Bloat here until we get something, whatever we want. This is just a test. This is just something to kind of play around here. While we're at this, we can add an effect to it. I'm going to add one called Bevel Alpha. Bevel Alpha. And this is just going to give it a little bit of stuff around the edges, a little bit of look around the edges right there. So not much to that. Okay, let's try a new shape. Let's go up to the Shapes tool. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and twirl this up, and then I'm going to click away from it so that it's deselected. I'm going to go up to the Shapes tool, and choose the rounded rectangle tool. And I'm going to go ahead and pull out a shape here. I'm just going to drag out a bar. Okay. Now we can again change anything we want about the parameters for this by clicking on contents. Here is rectangle 1 and rectangle path 1, and we can change the size and the shape here, the position of it, and the roundness of the corners if you want. Okay, I don't know what we're after here, we're just playing around. We're going to add a couple of more effects to this. You know, maybe we'll change the color of this as well so that we're not looking at the same color here. Maybe I'll make that a, I don't know, purple. Something like that. Whatever. Feeling purple today. Okay, so we're going to add some effects here. Let's try adding twist. Twist. And what you'll see here under twist, if we twirl it down here in the timeline, we'll see that we have an angle setting. So we can make this do whatever we want to do. And by the way, this can be animated. We know it can be animated because there's a little stopwatch icon in here so that we can make this start out straight and twist up like so. Turn into a Twilight Zone thing. Kind of cool, isn't it? All right. And by the way, I'm just dragging this back and forth, but in order to make a change happen quicker, 10 times quicker, I can hold the shift key, and that will really change the setting quickly. Okay. You know, I've never tried to go that far before. That's fascinating. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's twist. Okay. I'm going to take some twist out, by the way. Just make it a sort of a little S shape. And I'm going to do one called the repeater. Add repeater. Okay, and now we've got multiples of this shape. Now I'm going to twirl down on repeater here, repeater 1, and we can see we can change the number of copies. We can change the offset, which is going to make it have its copies to the left or to the right. And we can also change the positioning for this. That's going to be, this is tricky here, transform repeater 1. Watch out, because there's another transform right under this called rectangle 1. We don't want that one. We want transform repeater 1. Going to twirl that down, and so we can play with this a little bit. We can change the position, the scale, and so forth. So if I change the position a little bit, we can make this change to a different location. Okay, and again, all of this can be animated. Any of this that you want to animate can be animated. Again, you can change the number of copies. You can offset them however you want so they march across the screen. And the whole time you can change, you can be animating, let's say, the twist function so that it does its crazy little thing there. All right, so just for fun, just to put a period on this, we'll go ahead and add CC glass. CC glass. And we can see we get sort of a shiny looking glass effect to this. We can make a really bumpy looking glass. We can change the softness. The more softness we add, obviously it becomes more, I don't know, less, I guess, jelly-like. And the height here. Anything you want to change in these settings. It's kind of fun. You just play with these a little bit. And under light and shading, again, the same thing. The best thing to do is to go in and just play with these settings and figure out, you know, what they do. I'm not going to be able to go through them all with you right now. It'd be much better if you just came in here and started playing around with this stuff. It's really kind of fun to mess with this stuff. There we go. So there's a kind of a nice shiny look for our stuff. Maybe I'll add a little bit more displacement to this, and a height, maybe a little bit more height. Not too much because it goes kind of crazy. There, whatever. So that's CC glass. We're going to try a new comp now. We're going to try one named masks. So again, we're going to go back to our project icon there, project tab, and we're going to create a new composition by clicking on the little icon. We're going to name this one masks. masks. Click enter. And this time, let's go ahead and create a new solid. Layer, new solid. And we'll just name this masks also. And we'll change the color to something we haven't used yet. How about a nice little aqua? Looks good, whatever. Now, if you'll remember, the last time we used the Shapes tool, we were creating shapes. By the way, we know they're shapes because we can see them in the timeline listed as little stars. They look like little stars over here. That's their icon for a shape. But if we have a solid or anything else and we try to use one of these shape tools, what's going to happen is we're going to cut out all but the shape. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go and choose the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw out a box. Now it's funny shaped right now. If I want to constrain this to be a perfect square shape, I'm going to hold shift. Okay, and there's my box shape. All right, now understand what's going on here. We didn't create a box shape. We created a mask that's masking out all this area around the edges. Remember, this was a solid just a second ago. And we know this because we see this outline around the edges of our shape, and we see it listed under here as a mask. Here is mask 1. If I were to draw out another little shape down here, we would add another mask. Here's mask 2. So let's try the polygon tool. I'll pull out a polygon here, and we get yet another mask. Okay? And just for fun, let's get started playing with the pen tool. If we go over here and choose the pen tool, we can pull out a shape, and if you just click and pull on this, you're going to get a roundy shape. And if you come back around and click on the very first click again, you get that kind of a look. If you just click without pulling, you get these perfect corners called vertexes. Okay, these are called Bezier points. Okay, and if we click on any one of those points, we can adjust these things however we want, and we got a nice blobby shape, whatever. Again, remember, we are just adding masks to this layer. What have we got now? 5 masks that we've added to this. Now, I want you to notice something here real quick. If we hover the pen tool over one of these lines, we can add a point and pull it out. Okay? We can do the same thing up here. This time we're adding a Bezier point, and we can pull the handles and make that a shape. Now, we use the Shapes tool and not the pen tool to create these guys, but we have the same possibilities here. We can just click on the edges and pull out more points. So what if we want to delete a point? Well, if you're in CS6 or CC, you're simply going to hold down the Control key. Holding down Control allows us to erase points in any one of these. You just hover over the top one and you can erase them. Okay? So that's the way you do. You can alter these shapes. Now I want to draw your attention to this little thing up here called Roto Bezier. Now you remember that when we were working on this one, when we clicked on something, we could create these little points, and we could pull them out and do all this kind of thing. Now you're going to have to learn how to adjust all these. That's an important thing. But if you're trying to quickly cut out a shape, let's say you're going to mask something. We're going to mask this mountain layer here in just a second. What you're going to do is try to use the Roto Bezier tool, which is going to automatically set up little curvy lines for you, so you don't have to manually set these up. So here's how we're going to do this. Let's try it now. I want you to get the mountain layer right here, and I want you to drag this down over the new comp icon. What this is going to do is to create a new comp, and that is the shape and the size of our image in this case. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our markers because I don't want to see those anymore. And I'm going to roll the mouse in so that I can get a close-up view. And I'm going to hold the space bar, which you'll see turns my cursor into a little hand. And now I can move around inside this area. And what I'm looking for is the edge over here. So what I'm going to do here is cut out the background. And I've got Roto Bezier chosen, so I'm going to come over here off in the gray area, and I'm just going to click. And I'm going to start clicking inside here and try my best just to start cutting out this area. I'm going to hold the space bar down so I can move a little bit and just work my way quickly around this image. Now when things are really close together here, these little bumpy parts, I'll have to place these points closer together. But it doesn't take too long to roll around this area. Okay, so that's what I want you to do, is I want you to work on just going all the way around here. Takes a bit, but you can do it. I promise you this is worth it. We're going somewhere with this. So once we get all the way around, I'm going to hold down the space bar again, move down to, let's say, that corner down there, and then move all the way over here to the other side, to this corner, and then up and click on our first point. And what we're going to see, I got to adjust that one. We'll pull that one down a little bit. There we go. And so what we're going to see is that we have masked out that background area. Okay, now how do we know this? Well, on this mountain layer, I'm going to press M on the keyboard. M for mask, and there is our mask. Now, what if we wanted the background instead of the foreground? Well, we have this thing here that says add. Instead, we could choose subtract. And now we have the background rather than the foreground. And we have lots of other things. If you had multiple masks and you wanted to choose just the intersection and so forth, you could do that. We're going to go back to add, and let's just say, I don't know, maybe I wanted to make a nice little gradient for the background because that blue background that there was back there was too simple. Maybe I wanted to try something different. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new solid. We'll go to Layer, New, Solid, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and go up here and just click on one of the, somewhere in the shadow area to kind of pick up that blue color. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to drag this down below the mountain layer. And there we see our background again. And I'm going to add an effect to this. I'm going to add an effect called Ramp, R-A-M-P, Ramp. So we'll drag that over the top of this. And now we get, well, the wrong colors. Okay, let's try to make these colors correct. So here is my eyedropper tool for the ramp effect. I'll just bring that over this dark area right here. And for the white area, I'll go ahead and choose right there, something like that. And now we have a sky gradient in the background. Maybe I want to change that sky color, make it a little bit darker. I don't know. Something like so. Too dark. Maybe there. Something like that. So now we have this background layer. I'll go ahead and press Enter on this layer and rename it BG, Background. Okay, there we go. Now you remember what it used to look like? Let's see. I'm going to go click on Mountain and press M for Mask, and we'll just take away the mask. Let's click on that mask and press Delete, and that's what it used to look like. Well, I hope this has been a help to you. You've learned a little bit about solids, a little about shapes, and a little about masks. That's the 101 stuff that you really need to get down in After Effects. You remember that the Shapes tool will create a shape whenever there's nothing else selected. With nothing selected, if we have a shape, we create a shape, it's going to make a shape layer. There's the shape layer. But if we have something selected and we pull out a shape, it's going to create a mask. Okay? Is that making sense? So good luck with this. Have fun, and let me know if you have any questions.